and welcome back to the Dean Obeidallah Show on Substack Live today. And look who's here, our buddy Glenn Kirschner, 30-year plus federal prosecutor, served in the U.S. Army, JAG Corps, of course, has Justice Matters on YouTube and Substack. You got to subscribe to Substack. It's robust, and every night he's doing great stuff with your community meetings. And I even check it out. So nice to see you, my friend.
Great to be with you, Dean.
So let's talk about a few things. One is DOJ, and I talked to Representative Melanie Stansbury earlier today in New Mexico, has been one of the people really leading the charge on oversight for accountability. And it's explained this to me as a lawyer. Here you've got more than 1,000 victims, the DOJ says. You've got countless statements where people are detailing how they've been victimized and abused. You have victims going to court, to the congressional hearing, demanding justice, and DOJ's response is, we're closed, we're done, close it all down. Well, is this cover-up? I mean, would you call that a cover-up?
I would call it both a cover-up and accessory after the fact, which says if you know crimes have been committed in violation of the laws of the United States and you do anything to assist the perpetrator in avoiding detection, apprehension, trial, or punishment, check, 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 and check when it comes to Pam Bondi, you have committed the crime of accessory after the fact. Dean, I can't wait for the accountability mission to kick in. I can't wait for the rebirth of the rule of law. I can't wait we need to come up with whatever our version of the Nuremberg trials is going to look like and is going to be called. We need to come up, and I'm not trying to be cute. I'm not involved in marketing here, but we need to undertake an American accountability mission and put all of these people where they belong, which is on trial for their crimes.
Public trial, like on TV?
Public trials,
pay-per-view,
absolutely.
Substack Live? Substack Live trial.
And here's the thing. The verdicts don't even matter. It is the process that matters. It's applying the law to the facts as they're established in a full, fair investigation, turning it over to the conscience of the community, which looks like 12 people sitting in a wooden box in a courtroom, and let them decide. I believe that they will hold these folk accountable because the evidence is there in plain sight, the cover-up, the accessory after the fact. Heck, Dean, other countries are taking the Epstein files that we released and they're initiating criminal investigations. They're executing search warrants on high-profile, powerful, influential, connected people. Why can't we do the same? Why aren't we doing the same?
You know, in France, the prosecutors in Paris appointed magistrates to look into it. Already begun 3 investigations based on complaints. So it shows, and other countries too, Norway and others.
UK, Poland.
Right. So you've got the idea, America's wealth, immunity, maybe we can call that the wealthy have immunity, is unique to America. American exceptionalism is you can rape children and get away with it if you're rich. But in other countries, at least they're holding them accountable. So is that American exceptionalism at this point? We can define that way when you have a criminal in the White House who is implicated in this, but's already been convicted of 34 felonies. The guy attempted a coup. It's almost surreal, Glenn, where we live as a nation now with a criminal in the White House right now. And the discussions in the media are like, well, he's got a proposal for election integrity. The guy who attempted a coup has a proposal for election integrity. Why would you leave that part out in your horrible coverage in the media? I get so angry about corporate media.
And Dean, everything we're experiencing right now is a product of our refusal to hold them accountable the first time around. Hell, we can go back to 1974, right? Richard Nixon should have been held accountable for the crimes he committed that violated federal law and victimized in a very real sense the American people. But, Gerald Ford said, no. We're going to put the long national nightmare behind us by declining to hold Richard Nixon accountable for his crimes. And in a very real sense, we did the same thing for Donald Trump last go round. That is why we're here. And is anybody pleased with the state of America at the moment? No. Well, then how about we try accountability next time? Because next time is coming. It is virtually around the corner. It will start with the midterms. It will continue in the general presidential election. And then if we don't get our accountability on, you know what? We don't deserve to keep our republic.
Well, in New Mexico, by the way, the state just voted to create an investigation, like an Epstein commission, because there were crimes. He owned a property in New Mexico and no one's ever been charged. And Melanie Stansbury said she's read the unredacted files because she's on oversight, and then it appears there were crimes committed in New Mexico. And I was saying to her, what about New York? I live in New York. There were a handful of charges against Epstein. Obviously, he took his own life, but there were so many victims here in New York on the Upper East Side. And I bet you the statute of limitations is not run on every single case, especially if there's a child involved. I think New York should, the state legislatures, all Democrats, do the right thing. Create a commission, and if Democrats are indicted, so be it. This is about protecting the victims. It's about accountability and justice. I don't care if you're a Democrat or a Republican. You should go to jail if you rape children or involved in trafficking women.
Yeah, New Mexico is investigating. New York should investigate. Yep. Florida, though that's a long shot, should be investigating. And we have to decide as a people that the ruling class, right, rich, powerful, influential, connected, often political, generally white males, need to be beholden to the rule of law the way the rest of us are. I mean, that to me sounds like a basic proposition. It shouldn't be something we have to marshal arguments in favor of. But we have had no appetite as a government. We have had no appetite to hold the ruling class criminals accountable. And that is beyond shameful.
It's a weird thing in America where we had people in the past say, well, we don't want to charge our ex-presidents because we don't look like a banana republic. When in reality, you're actually a robust democratic republic by doing that. Because many countries, many of our ally countries, France, South Korea, and others have charged and prosecuted former leaders. And no one would go like, that's a third world republic. No, that's what you really do. It's like in Putin's Russia, where only his dissidents go to jail and die, Alexei Navalny and others. America, I don't get why that was a talking point for so long in our country. It's the exact opposite.
I believe we are moving in the direction of being a banana republic. Mm-hmm. When we say, you know what, the really important, powerful people get to victimize the rest of us, get to violate our nation's laws with absolute impunity and immunity. That, to me, feels banana republic-ish. Yeah. Not everybody should be held accountable for their crimes, regardless of their status. But again, this is not something we should have to marshal arguments in favor of. This is just like basic civics. It is human sort of decency 101. I think it's an inarguable proposition that we should all be held accountable for our criminal conduct. But in America, listen, we have exposed the ugly, ugly truth of, American governing because the Epstein files were, laying dormant in the Biden administration as well. I'm not a political guy, right? The Biden administration didn't go after the 10 co-conspirators that were contained in the email traffic among federal prosecutors in 2019. What the hell did the Biden administration do with those 10 co-conspirators? Of course, the Trump administration didn't do anything the first time, and they didn't do anything the second time. What does that say? It says both parties have no interest or appetite, for going after the ruling class.
Look, I can't argue. I think there's something. That's one of the few places that I think there is still an overlap, or there was an overlap between the two parties. I think the parties are vastly different right now. We know that on respect of democracy, the media, freedoms, liberties, all that stuff. But when it comes to protecting the ruling class and the donor class, the wealthy donors, that's part of it. Because big money in politics is why you have that. Because the big people have got to rise up the ladder of the Democratic seniority in the House and the Senate. They do that by raising a lot of money. So sometimes they have to shake hands with people they might not really like, and they do it. At the end of the day, if your big people who have been funding your campaigns and your super PACs are going to go to jail and you're going to prosecute them, you won't get money from them. And maybe others of their peers go, I thought this was going to protect me. So it's fundamentally wrong. Big money out of politics would be what a corrective thing for our society. I know you don't talk about politics a lot, but it is common sense. The obscene, grotesque amount of money in politics makes people compromise their values and do more work for the donor class than the middle class. And that's the problem it's part of one of the biggest problems we have.
Oh, listen, I'm not a political guy, and I'm certainly not a political expert, but campaign finance reform, I happen to believe campaigns should be publicly funded.
Yeah.
Obviously, we should get rid of Citizens United. That's insane and destructive to our democracy. And people disagree with this. I think one-term limits. I know, well, you're losing institutional knowledge and expertise. Dean, can you imagine if no politician ever had to run for reelection? Because I agree with you. You say, you got to shake hands with some cruddy people who happen to be filling your campaign coffers. But the problem is that handshake often involves sort of an invisible get out of jail free card that is delivered to the high dollar donor when the politician is holding his or her nose and shaking hands and accepting all of that money into their campaign coffers. And I think as long as we have big money in politics, that will never change.
There's a lot of people who would want to serve our nation as public service if it was one or say two terms. You
Yeah.
said, hey, for 2 or 4 years or 6 years, one term of Senate, I'm going to serve America. And if we had public financing, so many more people would want to do it, which is the best thing for your country. More people weighing in. And, for example, like I was mentioning to you, I was considering a run for Congress, and I still am. But the biggest challenge is not the timing between now and June 24th primary. Is that when I've talked to some consultants and some political people here, they're like, well, can you raise $1 million in the first week? I'm like, what? I mean, they're not saying it like they're like you have to do that. If you
But
not,
that's old school politics. Don't you think with social media, with the internet, don't you think
you
that
well,
has
you can do it other
changed?
ways, but you could do it through online. It's not like you have to go hang out with rich people on Wall Street every day to do that, or have fundraisers all the time. You still have to raise that amount of money. Like that amount of money can help so many people. Like I'm just be one candidate. There's three candidates in the race already. I have 1 million, 2 million in the bank. It's obscene. It's grotesque. And this is the system. So public financing we have for mayor and council in New York, which is really great. You raise $1, you get matched. There's a cap. I wish we had that nationwide, but Citizens United won't allow that. So I want to shift gears for a second, though. It's tied to this idea of defending a democratic republic is not just you get to vote. Your vote has to count. Of course, that's important. You have rule of justice, rule of law that you can believe in, but also you have a free and robust media. And what we saw with Stephen Colbert earlier this week, again, is chipping away at what is all the fundamental pillars of a democratic republic. In this case, the CBS lawyers obeyed in advance a proposed new rule by the FCC, Brennan Carr, on equal time. And then the lawyers at CBS came out and said, we didn't tell him he can't do this. And Stephen Colbert last night's like, here's the memo. I'm telling you exactly what happened. They told me I can't have on James Tallarico. And just so it's clear, he had on Representative Jasmine Crockett twice in this cycle. No one said anything. So it's not like he was favoring one or the other. And now all of a sudden, Tallarico, and they go, well, now the FCC's new rule. And it's not a rule. I went and read it again. It's from June 22nd, 23rd. It's a guidance. It's a proposed idea. But CBS like, we're going to agree with it. And this is the obey in advance of corporate media takes away our freedoms.
And are we surprised that this is the way CBS has decided to go? I mean, we already saw that they are laying down and letting Trump use them as an ottoman, basically. Just prop up your feet on us, dear leader. We got you. But I also think it highlights, apropos of us just talking about, campaign financing your campaign courtesy of the internet. What happened as a result of CBS's attempted crackdown on free speech? Tallarico goes on YouTube with Stephen Colbert and raises $2.5 million in 24 hours.
No.
And his message gets broadcast so much more widely and broadly than it would have if it was just on Stephen's show that night. So, this shows that, the dictator's attempts to crush free speech, to crush constitutional rights, it's all kind of backfiring, and he's being exposed as the weak, ineffectual, flaccid attempted dictator that he is trying to be. Flaccid attempted dictator probably conjures up other things. But think about it. He wanted to keep Jimmy Kimmel off air permanently, and I'm the dictator. I get to do it. He couldn't keep him off TV for 1 week. That exposes him as weak, not strong. He's going to implode, Dean. That's not Pollyanna. That's not magical thinking. This is all going to implode, and the rule of law is going to come back into the light of day, and we're going to be here for it.
The idea of Trump imploding, I think everyone wants to be here for that. We'll live stream it on Substack. I just think of the sci-fi movies where the guy's stuck in the chamber and on the spaceship, and then he literally implodes, which would be just amazing. or the melting face of Raiders and the Lost Ark. You pick your fun, folks. Pick your own melting Donald Trump adventure. I will say, as someone who performed comedy in the Middle East, where there were dictators running it, that the one thing you found out, there were certain rules on your jokes. You couldn't do jokes about the leader of the country. You couldn't do jokes about sex and politics. That was different. But the reason is the leaders, even if they didn't care as much, people around them did. They wanted to be feared, not laughed at. Trump has cut from that same cloth. He doesn't go to the White House Correspondents' Dinner. He wants you to not laugh at him because that makes him weak. He wants you to fear him. That's why Brendan Carr is also giddy to try to ban things. And it's not, you're right, it's not working well. Partly we're too big of a country. Like the Hungary model where Viktor Orban's allies have bought 80% of the media, and that's the number based on Reporters Without Borders, 80%. America's too big. And we have independent media now exploding online. So it makes it harder. And it's also a sense of resistance in all of what we're doing. Like that we're rebels. Well, that's kind of fun. I like that.
And it's energizing, engaging like this. I was on with Miles just a little while ago, and we've got the big counter programming to the State of the Union coming up on February 24th at the National Press Club in DC, the state of the swamp. And Defiance is energizing. When you realize you don't have to just sit in your house and be afraid and be concerned and being worried about what is the next outrage Trump will perpetrate. If you engage, if you laugh at it when you can, but engagement is the best antidote to the kind of desperation that we feel. And man, it feels good, and we're going to have fun doing it. I mean, that event on February 24. I'm not a salesperson, but it's live streamed for free to everybody, and it's like a 7-hour event. It's very long. It's like from 6 p.m. to like 11:30 p.m. Yeah, it's very. And the slate of speakers is incredible. But defying what Trump is trying to do to us and failing feels so damn good and energizing. So I would encourage everybody to defy.
Where can people sign? It's
Defiance.org. That's Miles Taylor's organization. He's putting it on. You can go to Defiance.org and you can sign up to live stream it for free, or you can come join us. We're all going to be there at the National Press Club on the 24th, and there are still, I think, a few tickets available, but one way or another.
Oh, there's there's a live component as well.
Yeah, it's a live audience.
Online. The live audience is going to be there for like 7 hours. I hope you have sandwiches. That's a lot of time. Look, I've done comedy shows where it turns into a hostage situation, and you can't leave, folks. So this is going to be 7 hours. That's amazing. I wish you the best. And again, Miles he'll be on my radio show Monday. We might do as a Substack Live during the day to further get the word out and play that night.
And think about, the word defiance. He tells this great story about how he and his wife were sitting there, literally with their head in their hands after Donald Trump issued an executive order saying Miles Taylor must be criminally investigated and prosecuted for treason, which is punishable by death. Something no president of the United States has ever done. Issued an executive order directing a criminal investigation of somebody who committed no crime. And I said, the only consolation, Miles, is that you have probably the poster child of a vindictive prosecution defense. So I don't believe he will ever try to indict you the way he just had Jeanine Pirro try to indict 6 members of Congress who had committed no crime. But Miles said the minute he went from like desperation and depression and fear to defiance, it changed everything. Changed everything.
I think many people who were listening had probably went to No Kings rallies and others. I went on Monday, which was just President's Day, outside of Trump Tower for the F Donald Trump rally, right? So I didn't know what to expect. So I got there a little early, and then they did this big countdown. There's like hundreds of people in the street on Fifth Ave, and like 5, 4, 3. I'm like, what's going to happen? And they all screamed F Trump. And it was so much fun. I have it on video. I played it on my show, and I put it on social media. People want. But it was perfect. It was like an hour protest. It was like, just slip it in your day, 1 to 2. It was a lot of fun. People hitting the drums. There were no counter protesters this time because there's no one left to defend Trump. There was a year ago, not this time. It was so cathartic. It was inspirational. I felt good. You leave and you feel like floating, like, yeah, this is great. And so again, that's part of the Defiance and this collective sense where we're all in this together. That is vitally important in the fight against fascism.
Community is everything. Community is everything.
Yeah. Yeah, alone faced with fascism, you'll be destroyed. Together we can prevail. And I've been saying that forever. And that's not Timothy Snyder. It's Dean Obeidallah saying that. All right, Glenn, I want to touch on one or two more quick legal things before we run out of time. You had a segment last night on a story that deserves more press coverage on Justice Matters on YouTube about the judge, Cynthia Roof, or RUFE is Ruff or Roof, quoting George Orwell because the Trump administration in Philadelphia took down a slavery exhibit because it makes Trump and his supporters uncomfortable about enslaved people because they were enslaved by, the white slave owners. So what happened this ruling?
So Judge Roof, who was appointed to the bench by another George, because this was all about George Washington's first residence in Philadelphia as commemorated in Independence Park, George W. Bush appointed Cynthia Roof to the bench. So I'm sure Donald Trump will tell us she's a radical lunatic left judge, which of course she's not. And she opened her 40-page ruling by quoting George Orwell's 1984 and comparing Donald Trump's, not directly, but this was the implication, comparing the Trump administration to Orwell's Ministry of Truth, which was a government agency that was designed to erase history, write a bunch of lies and propaganda, and force feed it to the people, just like the Ministry of Love was all about waging endless war. The Ministry of Plenty was actually about scarcity, withholding goods from the people so they would be starving and we would be submissive. I mean, and I said in my video last night, does that remind you of any government that you're familiar with? And, she said, listen, this violates the Administrative Procedures Act. Basically, an administration cannot act in an arbitrary and capricious manner. And plus the law required that they consult with the city of Philadelphia. They just violated the federal law in any number of ways. And they said, one, stop tearing shit down. The judge didn't use the word shit. And two, re-erect, restore everything you just tore down. And Dean, here are the two things that are remarkable. One, when you read the 40-page opinion, the Trump administration did not suggest, or they actually conceded and agreed with the city of Philadelphia that everything in that exhibit was historically accurate. But then they went on to say, but the executive branch wants to exercise its First Amendment rights to say it differently. And here, I love this. They said, and if it wasn't for this judicial intervention, we were just about to erect a new exhibit. To which I said to myself, just like you are always just about to release your new healthcare plan, and just like it's always going to be infrastructure week. I mean, come on. But here's the other thing. In that litigation, the Trump administration, the DOJ, did not present one bit of evidence. No evidence, which made me think, well, two things. As lawyers know, you can only submit evidence to the trial court. And once that case is over, the record is frozen. It's done. You can't supplement it with additional evidence because courts of appeals don't take evidence. And then I thought to myself, are they so cavalier, not even bothering to put any evidence on in their own defense for what they're accused of doing, that they're thinking, you know what, we've got 4, 5, 6 Supreme Court justices in our pocket. We don't need no stinking evidence.
It's remarkable. You had a series of things. You had the Medgar Evers exhibit down in Mississippi where they're rewriting the pamphlets so that the killer, who was a member of the Klan, who was a self-avowed white supremacist, won't be referred to as racist. In New York, it's Stonewall, the birthplace of the modern LGBTQ equal rights movement. They removed the pride flag and then they went back up last week and they put it back up. And there's a quote from Orwell that keeps coming up in my mind in this time we're living where he said, he who controls the past controls the future, and who controls the present controls the past. Basically, simplistically, it's if you control the past, you can write a mythology that helps you have power today. So if you rewrite the history of America to serve your own goals today, that's what he's talking about. The same way they do in Russia, they do in China. They're taking that playbook. So they'll say, here's our real past, and we're going to get back to that great time. I can only imagine what the new exhibit was going to be, Glenn. Something like a salute to white slave owners or something like that. Slave owners had it rough. You don't know. People ran away all the time. You wonder, this is the same regime bringing in white South Africans. That's their idea of African immigrants are literally whites, Afrikaners. So this,
Yeah, the slaves were happy to be employed with the
right,
benevolent slave owner who provided them, lodging and food. And, listen, we will not be fooled. And here's the thing, Dean, everything the Trump administration is doing, it can only fool the gullible, right? It can't fool thinking people. It can't fool people who can actually discern fact from fiction. It can only fool the gullible. And I have to believe, Dean, that even some of the gullible are like, that doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I mean, I do think people are peeling away from Donald Trump's cause. Even some of the folks who have been hanging in with him for so long, Lord knows he's not attracting new people to his cause.
no, although I'm not sure too many in MAGA have these moments of self-reflection going, I don't think Donald's right about this one. That probably doesn't happen too often. They just ignore it and move on. But I will say data backs up what you're saying. The number of people who strongly approve of Trump, strongly approve, which is an important emotion, about 22, 23%. Strongly disapprove, 49, 50%. That's an enthusiasm gap going to midterms that as a political person, we always look at. Strongly approve. If you love the guy, you're going to come out and vote. Strongly disapprove. If you hate the person, you're definitely coming out. And it's 2-1 people hate this guy, not just like hate Donald Trump. So before I let you go, Glenn, where do you want people to follow your work? We went a little long, but it's great chatting with you. It's great to have all these people joining us right here. Where can people follow you?
Yes. So Substack is the wave of the present. Independent media is the wave of the present, not just the future. I think, are both fully independent media these days. Come on over and join us on Substack. My content is free. You're welcome to support my efforts if you choose to, but you don't have to support me monetarily. So come on over every night at about 8:30 p.m. Eastern time. We jump on for a community meeting. We talk about the legal issue of the day. We talk about how we can engage, and it is an incredible community. I recognize half of the names on our Substack live here.
That's what I'm
And
doing.
then you can always go over to YouTube and just watch my daily YouTube videos. They're a little bit longer. They're a little bit more professorial. I talk a little slower. I try to put some graphics in as I am able. So you can come on over to YouTube or just right here on Substack.
And if I run for Congress, I hope you'll have me on your YouTube show every night begging with my hat. Please give me $5.
Which way are you leaning right now, Dean? Come on, give us something.
It's if it wasn't, well, I'm waiting for certain things dealing with SiriusXM. But so that's one thing in this. If it wasn't for having to raise so much money to just be taken seriously and be invited to forums and stuff, I think I would definitely do it because it's from now to June, right? And it's in my district and I live here. And I think I could add something to the race because there's no one with my background in this race. So there's 10 candidates. Some are really good, to be blunt. But so if all things being equal, I would, but I have to decide by next week because that's when petitioning starts in New York. You have to go out and get the signatures, and you only have 5 weeks to do it. So it's either next week yes or next week no, one or the other. We're going to see. But I'll let you know, Glenn, and I'll let everyone who's tunes in here let people know. But
Good.
thanks.
I think the people of your district would be proud to be represented by you.
I would love that. Sounds very nice. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Thanks, Glenn. Thanks for being on, brother. Love you. Take care.